What's up, baby bards? I'm Anne Richmond, aka Hearthsinger, the head bard in charge round these parts. And I recently learned a really hard lesson about producing TTRPG shows. No matter how good you get at making your podcast, you're only really as good as your first episode. It's how you start that matters most of all. After 2 years, my Starfinder actual play show, Starfound, is coming to a close. And we love our characters. We love each other. We adore our Patreon community. But with over 71 plus episodes in our catalog, our first 10 episodes were a bit of a slog for listeners. And analysis of our metrics on the show showed us that people who came to our Twitch, well, they stuck around. But people who came to our podcast for a premium listening experience, they tended to drop off after the first 2 episodes. All the comedy gold, the precious roleplay moments, and the community interaction from our patrons, it wasn't being experienced by a majority of people who finally were able to discover us on the internet. Looking back, we were sweet summer children, and we had never known the long winter, and honestly, we were still learning our equipment back then and recording in the same room. I know, that's pretty shocking today in the middle of a pandemic. We were learning the Starfinder system. We were learning to work with each other, and that was both at the table in character and out of character. And then we decided we wanted to stream the show, and that threw a whole wrench into what we were doing, and we got hit with another learning curve. And then 2 weeks later, well, that's when the pandemic hit, and we did move completely online, recording separately from our own homes. We were always learning. And within 20 episodes of starting the show, those were so many tectonic shifts in what we were producing and how we were going about it. And while the pandemic aspect of it isn't normal, learning as you go totally is. So today is about pinpointing the things I could have done along the way in those first, let's say, 20 episodes to ensure top quality from the outset. So my failings could help folks out there who are considering sharing their TTRPG adventures in podcast format. Let my failures be your opportunities. Please, God, someone should benefit. The first thing is easy, and it actually has nothing to do with the technology you're going to use. You need to sit down with your group and really sit with yourself and ask, what makes my table different? There are a million people out there trying to make this type of content right now because it's super fun and people are enjoying coming along for the adventure. And some of it that's out there is amazing, and some of it is, at best, entirely unmemorable. So what are you going to do to make yourselves, your storytelling styles stand out? Are you going to switch between different RPG systems every story arc? Are you going to be playing a homebrew storyline? Is there interaction with your viewers in some way? Are all the players at the table from the LGBTQ plus community? Are you all from a certain line of work in your day job? Are you all published authors? Why is it imperative that you are sharing your voices in this show? It can be anything, but it has to be something. You have to be able to sell the concept of your show and the cast beyond, we saw some people who's doing some stuffs with dice okie day. Jar Jar Binks enters the chat. Don't just playtest the system, playtest your equipment. If you're new to podcasting, you're probably going to have bought a mixer, a bunch of new mics, maybe some soundproofing foam. Tons of new things are going to be entering your studio, and you're likely going to be dealing with new software to record sound as well. And the odds of you getting it totally right the first time, they're low. They're very low. I'm someone who's constantly trying to improve their studio, and the amount of times I start a stream thinking, this is the time, I've done it, guys, I've gotten everything set up ahead of time, I can just relax, and then shown up in my little stream pod here and realized that there was something wrong or that something I had forgotten to set after the stream actually started, well, that's high. It's really high. It's many, many streams. Give yourself time to test on your own. You'll need it. You'll always need it, no matter how prepared you think you are. And then you should play through an entire just test adventure session with randomly, created characters by your cast and listen to a scene together. You don't even have to do the whole thing at first. Listen scene by scene, making adjustments and knowing that it's right before you progress forward. You'll want to listen for fans going off in the background, that the levels of everyone's voices are right. People are, using proper mic discipline and backing away when they yell. Too much rustling of character sheets or slamming on the table, sound bleeding in from the outside. Hell, I'm in New York, so I know that life. It was a few months ago when I was watching a clip of our show, and I was super excited for the funny part, but what I actually found was that my heart sank because I could hear through this hilarious little scene the sound of a persistent fan in the background of our DM set. And that's when I realized that an AC unit had been my freaking co-star for pretty much the entire run of our show on Twitch. That could have been totally avoidable and mitigated had we done some of these tests. And the only reason we didn't do them is because we were so desperate to tell a story together and to share what we were making. We didn't spend enough time on pre-production, and we left it primarily up to 1 or 2 people. Everyone has got to throw in for this and understand how important it is. And there's only so many times that you can announce your big new show and a crowdfunding page to your social media audience before they become blind and deaf to it. You want to make sure that when you pull them into your adventure that they are getting something that's ready for prime time. You don't want to waste their attention span once you've got it. Everyone needs to understand what they're signing up for and committing to and who is in charge of what. An open-ended, we'll meet every week until forever, can be understandably daunting for the human brain. And it's not just hard on the dungeon master who has to create in this endless perpetuity, but it's hard on the other performers as well, who don't know how much time they're going to need to block out or whether there is an out for them down the road if something comes up. You're likely to get a higher level of commitment from people on the project if there is an end or a break in sight when it comes to productions where no one is getting paid. It's always better to have someone come back to you excited to make more of a project rather than being met with crushing silence or a request to leave the table. Ask yourself and your collaborators what expectations they have for each other and the show. And that's a great conversation to return to, I guess, even every quarter. Are they expected to make social media posts when you're live? Is someone going to be taking over a group Twitter account and a Facebook page? How is Patreon going to be handled? And when are posts going out? Resenting being crushed by the weight of endless responsibilities that you didn't realize you could share with a team who wants to support you is just as bad as someone who signed on as a performer realizing that the Patreon for the project that they've been working on tirelessly has been dormant for the better part of a year. If everyone has their marching orders to begin with and the ability to vocalize their own boundaries and requirements at the outset, that stuff is way less likely to crop up and cause strife later on. Speaking of responsibility, you need to consider how much time all of the unfun stuff about this project is going to take before launching it. Logo design, editing the episodes, writing episode descriptions, scheduling social media posts, taking pictures for the Instagram, updating patrons. I mean, only about 20% of a TTRPG podcast project is the actual playing of the game. This number is based purely on my experience, of course, and your mileage might vary. You can pay somebody to do some of that if you have the money, but you'll still have to allot time to project manage it and make sure that everything is going according to plan. That takes time, it takes energy, and you need to make sure that you have that available in your tank before launching. Lastly, don't start a long ongoing campaign at first. Not until you're super satisfied with your cast and production quality. This thing you're doing, it's about to sap all of your creative strength and energy like Samson without his hair. We're getting biblical in here, baby bards. You might need to try and fail a few times before you're ready for a long haul story, and that's okay. Playtest with your cast. Try new people if the fit isn't quite right. Find the system and the story that's going to work for you, and then continue on with it, only when it sings. If you launch your show or your network with 8 to 10 episode arcs, it will also allow new listeners to find you and jump into the current story without the massive time commitment to listening to hundreds of hours of storytelling. That's a wrap, I think. If there's something you felt I missed, or if you have any questions about launching your TTRPG show, I have a breadth of experience with that. I've done it with Hearthsinger Games, and I'm a producer over at the Glass Cannon Network. So throw your questions in the comments below. I'm happy to weigh in. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please do give me a like and subscribe for more weekly TTRPG content from yours truly. I also stream on Twitch a few days a week, and I would love to see you there in chat. If you're interested in supporting my content, check out my Patreon, which also boasts some incredible opportunities for you to join me as your DM for a D&D one-shot. You can also find me online at these socials, and you'll find a link to join my Discord community in the info section below. My content is supported by The Wandering Merchant. They buy and sell used D&D books, miniatures, and more, making it more affordable than ever to complete your collection. Use code Hearthsinger for 10% off at checkout to support my channel. The website is linked below. Thanks for watching, you guys. Get out there and live your quest life. See you next week. Waving into the distance, waving into the distance, saying goodbye to the baby bards. It's what I do when I think hard about TTRPGs, man. TTRPGs, man, it's the plan, Stan. This is still recording.